You're welcome to Business Sense with Godswill Mobile on ITV. This is our third episode on this program, and our guest today is no other person than Dr. Ogho Okiti, the Chief Executive Officer of Time Economics Limited, a company whose core competence is based on strategy, research, and market. Sir, you're welcome to our program.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Yes. As you must have known by now, our program is a business-related program where business and finance is broken down for the ordinary man to understand, where terms and policies made by governments and organizations are explained to those who they are supposed to affect on an everyday basis. And in our previous episodes, we talked about the market, though we talked about the market in very simple forms as it affects the housewife, the young entrepreneur, the young businessman and woman. But today we are going a step further. We are talking about the market in a different form, in a concept that involves nations, larger bodies, and we are talking about the market as it relates to the emerging market as a concept put out there by economists and policymakers. So in this regard, before I go too far, when the average man talks about the emerging market, what should they understand by it? Because for an economist, it's easy to understand, but the average everyday man, should he be concerned about what the emerging market is all about? And if yes, then what is the basic meaning of the two words, emerging market or developing market, as it were?
Well, I think the easiest way to look at emerging market is to understand it from the point of view of when we say advanced market, we refer to economies in which the economies are defined by the financial markets, their debt markets, and these markets are very, very matured. Over time they've developed all these debt markets and equity markets, and they've become so matured. But in the last 20 years, another set of countries started to emerge. And these countries before then, you wouldn't quite regard them as emerging market. And the reason you won't regard them as emerging market is because they were largely closed. Meaning their equity and their bond market was largely done internally, and even their regulatory measures. But these countries in the last 20 years, some of them have started to attract what you call international capital into their economies through bonds, through equity. So this term now came up with emerging markets. So emerging market actually refers to countries where their markets are growing in terms of exposure to the international community. So that's really the easiest way to look at emerging market. Another way to look at it is that these economies, apart from starting to attract international capital, they also started to grow above, let's say, 5%. They also started to experience some kind of volatility, because when you attract international capital, those capital also have the capacity to just leave the country or leave the economy just as the slightest wave of any risk. So that is when the term emerging market actually started to emerge. And you have countries like in Africa, South Africa, you have the Brazil, you have Turkey, you have China. So these are countries that in the last 20, 25 years, they've started to develop their market, and they've started to attract international capital. And that's when they started calling them emerging market.
That's interesting. From what you're saying, I was very keen on hearing when you mentioned Africa and you mentioned South Africa. Where does the Nigerian market stand in the global ranking, as it were?
I think there are three different kind of markets. You have the advanced market, the US, the UK, the Euro market. Then you have the emerging markets,
yes,
which I've just described.
Yeah.
And some people will regard Nigeria as an emerging market because it has some of the features of an emerging market. One of those features is that in the last decade, before this recent economic crisis, we grew above 5%. We started to attract international capital into our equity market and even our bond, our debt market. We started to list, our government started to list bonds, issue bonds in the European market. So in that sense, yes, you will regard Nigeria as an emerging market. But there's also the sense that some people will not regard Nigeria as an emerging market, they will regard Nigeria as a frontier market. And what that means is that you have an emerging market which is slightly developed in terms of infrastructure and in terms of economy. Then you have some other countries that are that are coming behind them. They are frontier markets, they have some of the features of the emerging market, but they don't quite have the extensive infrastructure, of the emerging market. So they started calling those economies frontier market. But if you say Nigeria is an emerging market or a frontier market, you are fine.
But if we have to be very clear and cut it as it is, those who define these markets, like the Financial Times, the Standard and Poor's, and those bodies out there who define who the emerging market is, once they take you out of that definition, as it were, what can you do to bring yourself back in?
Well, like I said, we talk about the features.
Yes.
So if you regard Nigeria as a frontier market, for instance.
Yes. Which I think it is, because by the definition of 2016, I think Nigeria is
safe. I mean, is a frontier market, because we've started to emerge in the last decade and attracting international capital into equity, into bonds, and we started to issue bonds in the euro, and our growth has been about 5% during the period. Yes, we're a frontier market. What we can do to say move into the emerging market, there are two basic things I think that needs to be done. Over time, we need to build our extensive infrastructure. We need to build infrastructure extensively. And of course, over that same period of time, our markets mature a bit more. I mean, or let's say mature deeper, then we can truly be classified as emerging markets.
Well, what could be said to be the main challenges of Nigeria stepping into these ranks? Because it's quite disheartening to know that at some point we're being considered as one, which makes some paper written at that time being read today, and you refer to Nigeria as an emerging market, then it seemed like you're saying something wrong, because as of today, there's none of those indices that indicate that Nigeria is an emerging market, rather a frontier market. So what are those things we're doing wrong, like, that are really sending us back into the dungeon?
I really would not like to look at it from the perspective of what we are doing wrong.
Yeah.
I like to look at the perspective from the perspective of what we can do better.
Okay, but before you start to tell us what we can do better, that will make us being considered strongly as a market to be seen from the outside world as one that is serious and coming out of the holes it found itself. We will talk about all of that immediately after the break. You are welcome back to Business Sense with Godswill Ayemoba. My guest still remains Dr. Ogho Okiti. So, Doctor, before the break, you were to tell us what our economy needs to do right in order to move up the scale, or the market scale as it is.
Well, and that is the point I was trying to make. It's not necessarily about doing something right or wrong.
Yeah.
It's about maybe a case of deepening and a case of doing something better. Let me say it this way. One of the things that gave rise to the attraction of capital, whether it's in the emerging market, the established ones, the China, the Turkey, the Brazil, or the ones that are coming behind like Nigeria, one of the things that happened is all the reforms that started to happen in those countries. And those reforms also happened in Nigeria.
Yes.
You know, you reform your equity market, which is the stock market.
The banking sector.
You reform your banking sector. You reform the debt market. You issue international bonds, because especially for benchmark, even if you don't need the resources, your banks can go to the international market and get capital.
Yes.
These are all the things that make you a frontier market or an emerging market. Meaning your market, your debt and equity markets, and your economy is being opened up to the international market. So that is the key point.
Okay.
So going forward, what we need to do is continue to do the policies that deepens such economic activities. So, and that's what will make us an established emerging market is.
Okay. Now, that being said, how can like this small and medium scale enterprise in our economy, how can they contribute their quota? Is there anything that they will ever do that will be significant enough to add a push to uplifting the status of our market as it is?
Absolutely. But let me start even from the general economy, from how the economy actually benefits the small scale.
Yeah.
One thing that is very, very important as we make progress is that growth is important. The growth rate of an economy is important, because the growth rate tells you how an economy is becoming richer or poorer. So that is very, very important. And growth rate is an indication of the economic activities that happen within a certain period of time in the country. So the first thing is that the policies that we do, the policies that we carry out, should be about how to grow the economy. And in the process of growing the economy, we also grow the businesses of the small scale and the medium scale enterprises. Because when we talk about this growth, many people think it's an abstract thing. It's not abstract. The growth of Nigeria is from the growth of businesses. When we talk, Nigeria is growing 5%,
yes.
It means an aggregation. That's when you put all the businesses
together
and all the activities together. This is how they are growing within the period that is considered. So small scales can contribute to Nigerian economy first by making sure that they grow, by adding value to their own businesses and growing the Nigerian economy. That's the first thing. Then the second thing is now to say, okay, look, how do we begin to take these businesses internationally?
Yes.
Yeah. Some businesses, and there are so many of them that are local, but there are impediments, there are binding constraints, there are things that prevent these local businesses from becoming international. One of them is that we have a large informal sector. Sometimes it's not that the quality of our products or the quality of our services are necessarily bad or too bad for the international market, but the thing is that we are not organized and ready for the international market. For instance, if somebody wants to say, I want to import this suit from Nigeria, the person will not want to talk to a nearby a corner tailorman, even if the tailor can sew the best suit in this world. The person will want to know the kind of businesses. The business is registered, the business has a banking account, this is where they source their material from, this is how they sew it, this is their standard measures, So those are all the things that we need to do as an economy to help small businesses, and also the small businesses also need to do to ensure that their businesses are internationally comparable. That's very important.
But now, you see, that takes us back to where we think the bane of the problems we are experiencing comes from. Now, how much are we, maybe as those who have structured their businesses properly, or in your view, those government institutions that are supposed to help the ordinary businessman? I keep using the word ordinary because those are the people that seem to matter in our economy now. How well are we making an effort to see that we carry them along? Because in our previous episode, one of the things our guest highlighted is the young entrepreneur being able to come up with a proper business plan and having their figures right. which is almost everything you just said now for a small or a medium scale business to be relevant to the big market. Who is supposed to do that for us? Because it's not just by education, it's not in our orientation. We need to be taught it. So who is in charge? Who is teaching it?
I think it's both ways. There are roles that the government need to play, obviously, and there are agencies that play some of this role, maybe like SMEDAN, Ministry of Trade and Investment.
Yes.
So there are government
Bank
agencies
of Industries
that play some of those roles.
Yes.
That is important.
Yes.
And they are doing, I believe, the best that they could.
Yes.
But I also think that the individual owners of these small scale and medium-sized businesses have to do much more. What I mean by that is that they also have to have the realization and the thinking that instead of catering for 180 million potential market, I can cater for 7 billion potential market.
That's looking at a bigger picture.
Yes, looking at the bigger picture. And the truth of the matter is that if you want to do that, then you must first of all accept that there are international standards. This is not about trading within Abuja, or trading within Lagos, or trading within Aba or Kano. If we are going to trade internationally, there are standards. There are whether in terms of measurement, there are standards in terms of weight,
quality.
There are standards in terms of quality, there are standards in terms of packaging. So if you are going to trade internationally and contribute to the international market, those are the things that as a businessman you have to also take into consideration.
Now, all this being said, who should be more interested in the other? Should the average Nigerian be interested in the global market like you seem to be suggesting? Or should the Nigerian market just prepare itself and hope that the global market will see you relevant and come for you?
This is a very, very funny question, but let me put it this way. As crudely as I can.
Yes.
The world can move on without Nigeria. Let's not pretend.
How can?
Oh yes, the world can move on without Nigeria. Even the oil that we produce, if we don't produce any oil today, there are countries that can fill the space within a day. I'm not talking weeks. There are countries that can adjust their production just to meet Nigerian quota. Just
like it's been shown recently that Angola has overtaken us.
Yes, so let's not pretend that we are so important that we are indispensable. Now, having said that, the world also do not want a situation where 180 million people are left behind or isolated. So there is a mutually beneficial roles that the world can play and Nigeria can play. But having said that, it is in Nigeria's best interest. It's in Nigeria that is the bride. It is the bride that must look after herself and get herself ready and put on the necessary makeup, put on the necessary clothing, put on to make herself look beautiful for the international market. And that is what we as a country, as a government, as a people, and as businesses must do.
Interesting. Now, knowing all of this, does the Nigerian market respond to international economic spikes? When things happen internationally, how well does the Nigerian market react to it? But this you answer after the break. You're welcome back to the last segment of our program, Business Sense on ITV. Dr. Ogho, does the Nigerian market, like I asked before the break, does it even respond or strategize against the activities of the international market?
There are two things there. say, does it respond? And does it strategize?
Yes.
The first one, let me answer the first one. Does it respond? Definitely. The last 2 years has provided with the clearest evidence that the Nigerian economy responds to what happens to the international economy. And the way an economy responds to what happens in the international market or in the international economic space is through your export, your import, your international debt, or your international capital flow. So those are the ways in which he responded. In the last 2 years, oil prices are falling dramatically. So, and you can see what is happening to the Nigerian economy today. So we do respond. That's the first one. In terms of strategy, I'm not in a position to tell very clearly that we do strategize. I know that there are some form of strategy that go on in government offices. I'm sure, let's say, if we want to attract international capital flow, there'll be some sort of strategy. But because of where we are now, it is very easy to say, oh, we did not strategize, because if you strategize, it's supposed to be that, oh, we should have a different result. But I think recognizing that we have a mainly single export product, we have tried to and diversify those exports, but we haven't quite achieved that. So I think there's some kind of strategy going on, yes.
We know what Aba is to the Nigerian economy. We know what the Apapa business district is to the Nigerian economy. But I tell you, the road to Apapa is an eyesore today. Is this a government you think, or is this a people you think are responding and reacting? The roads to the main places, there are almost no industries up. I did a project on industries in Kaduna, and I was a few kilometers away from a textile industry, and every single soul around there told me that they were not working. It took the grace of God for me to get in and see that there were skeletal services. Whose fault is this?
Well, I think it's government fault. I mean, whether you say government ministries or government agencies. But I think there are two keywords I want to drop here. And those two keywords are important if we are going to make progress. Capacity and coordination. It's not that we don't know this issue, but if you look at government very well, and if you look at successive governments very well, and the agencies of government responsible for all of this, you will realize that the capacity to do this, to coordinate this development, to organize development. I keep telling people, the problem is not that we don't have the capacity to develop, but the problem is that we lack the capacity to organize our development. Everywhere in the world, people design their development. I mean it. They sit down and design it.
Proactively.
Yes, because when you design it, then you bring in all the constraints, all the opportunity, and you mash them together, and you go from year to year to year to year, year and year and year, and you measure the progress, you evaluate them, and that's how you develop.
So development is not a game of chance, like you say?
It's not.
It's not like a Russian roulette.
That has become developed on the basis of, oh, let's just
by
leave
fluke.
it. Yes, let's just leave it, it will happen. No, it doesn't just happen.
Okay. So, Dr. Okiti, we're coming to a close of our program today. What are the very vital points you think we should hold? Maybe one for the people and one for the government.
Yeah, let me talk about the people as well, because I think that is where there are serious issues with people.
We need to focus.
Yes, there are. You see, driving to this place, for instance, I saw so many able-bodied men, sitting down and just
at this time of the day,
just looking at the sun. So the issue is that as a people, we also have to understand that development is serious. Even personal development is a serious business. It's not for a lazy, unthinking man. It's a serious business. And when we know that there is why we work 5 hours and go to sleep, there are people that do 12 hours a day in this world.
Yeah.
They do it consistently because they know that there is no free money coming from somewhere.
Yes.
They work.
Yes.
That's right. In terms of government, I'm just going to repeat what I said before. Assuming we have made all the mistakes that we needed to make up to 2016, if we are going to make progress, then we have to design that progress.
So, Dr. Okiti, I would like to say, seem like we have a lot to talk about on all of this. I would like to invite you soon again, if not for the very next episode, to continue on this topic. It's a pleasure having you on this program.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
So, see you again next week on Business Sense with Godswill Imoba. Goodbye and God bless.